Dr. Wiley says we will not take over the world unless we are listening to Geekcast Radio Network.
Maybe you should play something else.
Hello and welcome to GCRN Wars. This is episode 16. This is our video game character tournament round 1 part 2. I am one of your hosts, TFG and Mike, and joining me is Steve Megatron. Hello.
Hello.
Optimus Solo. Hello.
I'm here.
And TV's Mr. Neil.
Welcome to the next level.
You got to use that throughout the rest of the tournament.
The princess is in another castle.
Yeah, well, that's how we should end it. Your princess is in another. Yeah, Steve, get on that.
Bite me.
No. I just want to say something really quick before we start.
Uh-oh.
Everybody needs to listen to the podcast to hear our opinions on these matchups before you vote. We don't just want the popular vote.
Hey.
What? I'm
just saying because I don't want anybody knowing what the answer is until next episode.
I'm not giving any answers. I'm just saying compared to the episode 15 and now, in the comments of episode 15 there was, people worried about the popular vote getting it. The whole point of us doing these tournaments is we record these podcasts, give you our opinions on the matchups. So last episode, Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Toad, all that stuff. You listen to that, make up your mind who you agree with, who you don't agree with, and then vote for whomever you want to vote for. But don't just go and vote to vote without listening to the podcast.
Think of it as watching the characters battle on Super Smash Brothers.
Right. Yeah. But the point is not just to go to the post and vote. It's to listen to the podcast, then vote.
After that disclaimer.
On a positive note. Obviously it's good to have some reasoning and some scenarios for why you think somebody would win instead of just your favorite character. But people are going to vote the way they're going to vote. Hopefully we'll have a outcome that's not simply based on the more popular characters, but we'll have to see how it goes. For those of you that are coming in, like Neil said, at the next level and weren't with us for the first part of this, last episode, you can always obviously go back and listen to episode 15, but last episode we covered the first half of the tournament bracket, which featured 8 different battles. There was obviously a Nintendo theme to that half of the bracket. We'll have to see what kind of themes we have on today's half of the bracket. But we had the matchups of Mario and Luigi, Toad and Yoshi, and Zelda and Princess, Link and Little Mac from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, Mega Man and Beautiful Joe, Donkey Kong and Fox McCloud, Bomberman and Conker, and Kirby and Pikachu. So that was our first half of the bracket. You were able to vote on who you thought would win on all of those different battles. We are not, however, going to tell you who won those battles yet. We will get the winners of that half of the bracket the same time that we reveal the winners of the bracket that we're talking about today. That'll all be coming up next episode. So you have to wait until episode 17 to hear all of the round 1 winners. Mike, any disclaimers or other notes that we need to get off our chest before we start the second half of the bracket, and anything they need to know?
I don't think so. Just listen, then vote. I mean, that's kind of, it's same thing when we do our top 100s. We want people to listen to the podcast and then discuss in the comments and stuff. And
what would be even better, I think, or what could be more fun for everybody is if you go to the actual website post for episode 16 and have some debates on there through the comment section, maybe before anybody, before you cast your vote. Get in a debate with someone, put your scenario out there, let us reply. We can kind of hash it out even more than we do on the podcast in the comments, and then you can vote after that too. So there's multiple options for how you're going to go about voting. Steve, anything else before we get to battle number 9?
No, I think that pretty much rounds it out there.
Yeah, obviously the biggest thing is have fun, listen, participate, and it'll be more fun for everybody. Starting off today, and you'll have to see what kind of themes we get to here, but we're starting with battle number 9 on the right side of the bracket, and that will give us Sly Cooper versus Crash Bandicoot. So, Sly Cooper versus Crash Bandicoot. Mike, I hear you. What do you got to say about this one?
Well, first of all, I have to say, Sly Cooper must be a current gen character because I do not know him at all.
He's actually PlayStation.
Well, okay.
2.
Still, PlayStation, Xbox, it's all the same damn thing in the last 10
So Sly Cooper's
years.
been around since 2002.
Well over
And Crash has been around since
97, 96, yeah.
Yeah, so Sly Cooper was on the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Vita, etc. He's a thief. I'm just filling in for Mike since you don't know, this character.
Or Nate, you're filling in for Nate since he couldn't be here.
He's a raccoon thief from a long line of master thieves, kind of like a medieval feudal type of raccoon character, I guess you could call him. Somewhat pirate, somewhat thief. So he's got that cunning, secret nature, but also somewhat loyal and brave, I guess, in some respects, strong, I guess. He's always carrying around that like sickle, I guess is what I kind of attribute it to. I don't know if it's technically a sickle. But that's who Sly is. Do you know who Crash Bandicoot is, Mike?
Obviously. But, with Sly...
He's Bandicoot.
Yeah, I know. Well, with Sly, as you're describing him, I'm like, hey, it's Mario in disguise. Because of the whole raccoon thing.
Except without the plumber part.
Well, yeah, true.
Maybe if he's in his raccoon suit, yes, I'll give you that much.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Crash, who doesn't know Crash? Crash has been around for years and years and years. I remember playing Crash in the 90s all the time. It's just a fun game series.
And he's the most, I attribute or kind of connect him most to, he's almost like the Tasmanian Devil. The Bandicoot that spins like crazy and knocks everything over. Kind of in the same way Taz would if he was going through his little tornado action.
But Crash isn't as dark as Taz can get. Taz can get pretty dark sometimes with his humor.
True.
Crash is a very fun-loving, upbeat, jovial kind of character.
Yeah, I can see that. Just looking at these two characters and kind of what they bring to the table, Neil, what's kind of your first impression, and who do you see having an advantage one way or the other?
Well, to me, this is kind of a mirror of the Donkey Kong versus Fox McCloud fight, because you have the smart, resourceful, agile character versus the big dummy. So I'm going to again give it to the agile character and say that Sly Cooper takes it, because I think Crash will just come in, spinning, bouncing off things, wrecking shit, and Sly's just going to slip out of the shadows and take him out.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very good comparison to that Donkey Kong Fox McCloud battle, and it's going to be interesting to see how people vote based on just the brute force versus the cunningness. I think the one difference there would probably be that Fox more maybe was a little bit reliant on his vehicle more so than you'll get with Sly. So maybe that'll be enough to give Sly the edge where the cunning and the quickness will be able to kind of surpass just the spinny frenzy of Crash. What do you think, Steve?
I'm not entirely familiar with Sly, but just from what I've researched of him and what he looks like, I kind of have to agree with Neil here. I think that in this instance, although Crash is probably more recognized to some degree, but kind of not really anymore. He's not really relevant anymore, whereas Sly Cooper seems to be more relevant now. I would prefer for Sly to win. Plus, he's getting his own movie, and Crash isn't.
Probably more of a character that could have a movie than Crash. Yeah, I'm kind of siding with Neil on this one. Even though I kind of was on Donkey Kong's side in the first one, it was more so because I didn't think once you take the vehicle away, Fox was as much of a threat. Where I think Sly is resourceful enough where he doesn't rely on anything except for his own kind of intelligence and cunningness. So I think he's going to be able to outsmart Crash, trick Crash into. I mean, he could probably just get Crash to spin off the edge of a cliff or something. But I don't know, Mike. What do you think?
I gotta go with Crash. I gotta go with the crazy, because crazy works sometimes.
There always has to be that one guy.
That's right.
I would cast my official vote for Sly. I think I'm in agreement with Steve and with Neil on this one. So we'll let you be the lone fighter for Crash, and you'll have to rally your troops and get them to vote so that you can say you're right and we're wrong or whatever.
I'll just say this: number of times the Tasmanian Devil beat Bugs Bunny, 0.
There we go. That's even a better. That's the best comparison, actually. That's even better than Donkey Kong and Fox McCloud. That's very close to Taz and Bugs. I like that. Yeah, Mike, the odds are stacked against you. Anyway, going to the next
bound
battle.
to happen eventually.
Going to the next battle on that side. Battle number 10. We have Spyro the Dragon versus Rayman. Now, Mike, since you're old,
Yeah.
you should remember Rayman a little, right?
I remember Rayman, but Rayman was not someone I paid attention to. I know of the games. I know what the games look like, but for me, it's Spyro all the way.
He's almost like, I remember Rayman, but Rayman doesn't remember me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rayman, of course, has been around since about 95, I believe. And, you know, we haven't seen him this year at all, but I believe he had a game last year as well. So, I mean, he's been around for quite some time. I don't ever remember playing a Rayman game. But it's interesting because we have our first opponent that has no arms, legs, or neck. So how do you really beat this guy? I mean, he has hands and feet and a head, but they move independently from his body. So, I don't know.
It's Spyro. He's a flame-breathing he's a fire-breathing dragon. All he got to do is set the thing on fire. And bam, there you go.
Yeah, but with his body parts moving freely, he can seemingly get out of the way of most stuff. He does have a long-range punch. At times, he's been able to eject things from his gloves. He can use his hair to glide and float. So, I mean, he has all that going for him. Does Spyro have offense other than the typical dragon type of offense?
It depends on which game you're playing. If you're playing the traditional game, the dragon offense is his offense. I mean, flight, fire, duck, roll, and dash. So, I mean, the fire has to win out. I mean, the only way that Rayman is not going to beat Spyro, against Spyro's fire is if he has a fire hose and douses the fire.
But is Spyro mean enough to even try to take it to Rayman?
If Rayman was threatening his family or whatever, yeah, or his land, yeah, sure.
I mean, you're right that he's, he can do some things, spit fireballs. He even breathed ice in some games. He's got the, ramming into people with his horns.
Yeah.
Horns. I mean, he has a bunch of different stuff. I mean, it's not just fire. It could be water, ice, lightning, etc. that he's breathing out on or kind of sending towards his opponent. I don't know if he's as kind of... I don't know, like, Rayman is kind of a dark horse, I think. Like, you kind of write him off at, like, kind of like what you were talking about, like, right away. It's, Spyro's more popular. He's the more known, maybe, character. He's a dragon. But I don't know if you write off Rayman so quickly because, like, with that free moving body and he can still do some long-range attacks and some other things, I think it's a closer fight than you think at first glance. What do you think, Steve?
Well, being that I've not played a game of either, I am familiar with them, but I've never played either one of their games. I do have to say I recognize Spyro more, and I like his appearance more than Rayman, and I have to agree with you as well that I think Rayman kind of doesn't get the credit that credit's due, because if you look at Spyro, he had games all the way back from like 98 to 2005.
Right.
And nothing more. He's kind of faded away. Whereas
No,
Rayman,
that's not true. He's got Skylanders now.
That's true.
Still. And how many years between?
It's still he's still relevant though.
Not really, because if you look at it, Rayman's been around since 95. He was on MS-DOS. And he's still here.
Okay,
and he's on the Wii U and the 3DS, and where's Spyro? So, I mean,
It's
I want to give it to Spyro
they both can somewhat fly and float around. They both can kind of shoot stuff at each other. Maybe Spyro has a little bit stronger arsenal of things he can shoot at it. But Rayman has the easier way of dodging and avoiding getting hit.
Well, he can just throw his limbs in opposite directions and you know, roundhouse kick him from all different directions. So, I mean, like I said, I want to give it to Spyro, but he's also friends with Crash Bandicoot, so that would be like siding with the enemy there. So I'm gonna have to go with
You
Rayman.
ass.
What do you think, Neil? How do you break this one down?
I'm just gonna go with Spyro. I'm not really familiar with either game series, so I don't know. I think the dragon, having the flame breath, would have a better long distance arsenal than just someone who can swing his arms around.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to go against dragons.
All right, look at it this way.
Spyro's cocky and arrogant, which could get him into trouble in the fight.
Right, but not in all of the games.
No, not
He comes across as a younger, possibly more not immature, but I guess immature. I mean, he comes across as a slightly younger character than Rayman does, maybe. I picture Rayman more as like that, teenage/young adolescent type age, where I picture Rayman as like an 8 or 9 year, or Spyro as like an 8 or 9 year old character. I don't know why I do that, but
I think that with Spyro, all he's got to do is collect all of Rayman's body parts, put them on a skewer, and barbecue that shrimp up.
Like I said, I think it's hard to go against a dragon, and I think I ultimately would vote that Spyro would win this matchup. I just think it would be closer than the votes probably are going to be. I think Rayman stands more of a chance than most people would give him, just because maybe they're not as familiar with Rayman. But, I mean, we could be wrong there. I think it's an interesting matchup. I think if you actually broke it down and put them against each other, it wouldn't be something where the same character wins 10 out of 10 times. Where you might get with some of the other things, like in what we talked about last episode. If you put Zelda against the princess, I think Zelda wins 10 out of 10 times. Mm-hmm. This one, I think it's closer to like 7 out of 10 times or 6 out of 10 times that Spyro comes away with it, and Rayman sneaks a few wins in there somewhere.
I know you don't want us predicting too much, but I'm going to say this right now. It's going to be interesting if Crash and Spyro win the votes and they have to face each other next round.
They'll pull one of those one things like the WWE, and they'll be like, I can't fight him, he's my friend.
So it'll be Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, God.
All right, so that does it for Battle 10, seeing Spyro against Rayman. Let us know who you think would win that matchup. And now we're throwing a twist into this tournament. We might catch a lot of flack from this. I'm not sure. But we're going to add just a slight twist on this side of the bracket, starting with battle number 11. Some people might call this an unfair advantage, but battle 11 sees ToeJam and Earl fighting Ratchet and Clank. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that there's anything wrong with this matchup or that this won't be a blowout necessarily, but you may have noticed that it's a two-person team against a two-person team, and so far up to this point in the tournament, it's all been solo acts. Mm-hmm. So maybe some people are having problems with that. We'll see how you guys feel about it, but we have Ratchet and Clank against ToeJam and Earl. Mike, what do you think?
I like it. I think it's interesting. I mean, it's
They always are together.
Yep.
They were in games together. More so than just like Mario and Luigi are in games, or like Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong are in games. Like these are a connected pair, it seems like.
Yeah, they are.
They're at the hip.
And it makes sense because they go hand in hand in each of their game series.
That being said, does ToeJam and Earl have any snowball's chance in hell of beating Ratchet and Clank?
Hell no.
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 But they made an appearance in the tournament, so we'll give them that much.
I mean,
they would just send them away on their magic elevators to Mars and, dumping them off. And besides that, Ratchet and Clank are just so much cooler of characters in general.
For those of you that don't know who the heck we're talking about, ToeJam and Earl came to us way back in 1991. I guess you could... Wikipedia, I'll do that since everybody hates when we do that, describes them as a three-legged red alien and a fat orange alien. So there you go. They were definitely an interesting group. I think it would be hilarious if they ended up going against somebody else that we'll later see on this half of the bracket, just because I always kind of equated them as the same types of characters.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think it's fun to have ToeJam and Earl in this tournament. But Neil, is this like a 5-second knockout for?
Yeah, because ToeJam and Earl, I don't even remember them having attacks. They were just in this weird roguelike game on the Genesis, and it was like, what the heck?
I think they could fly or pilot something.
They could drive a ship. That was pretty much it, and they would go through elevators.
I kind of wish there was a tag team division in this. We could throw the Ice Climbers in there and a couple other teams.
I almost want to see, since we're talking about tag teams, I almost want to see Ratchet and Clank versus Sonic and Tails.
Oh, God.
See, I don't think that's an easy enough one to... I know Sonic and Tails are with each other a lot, but it's not like they're always
not attached
together.
to the hip.
True.
Like we have with Ratchet and Clank or ToeJam and Earl.
That's what we ought to do next video game tournament we do eventually. We ought to do, like, tag team matches. That would be awesome.
That'd lead for a whole nother level of strategery there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you for coming, ToeJam and Earl. You can now leave the tournament. This is I equate this to like I'm just gonna keep throwing wrestling references in here. I'm gonna equate this to the Royal Rumble when like the Bushwhacker guy literally went down the aisle, went in the ring, got tossed over the rope on the opposite side of the ring, left the arena. It was like a 3-second thing, but he made an appearance.
ToeJam and Earl are second-tier characters, whereas Ratchet and Clank are more primary than they are, and there's no comparison.
No, this should be if this isn't the biggest blowout for a voting matchup, then something's wrong with people.
Yes. We will have that one person. Guy.
We'll have that one guy that's like, I'm going to vote for ToeJam and Earl just because I think it's funny.
Ratchet and Clank, flawless victory.
Basically. Thankfully, none of those characters are involved because that would not be fair.
We can still make the reference.
No, I know. I'm not saying you can't. And now we have Sub-Zero in the tournament. Party over. Getting into the 12th matchup, battle number 12. Now, you probably could say that it would have been a better matchup if I would have paired one of the contestants in the battle 12 to one of them in a battle 11 and vice versa. But maybe we're leading up to a better matchup next round. We'll have to see. Battle 12, we'll see Banjo and Kazooie versus Jak and Daxter. So again, we have a pair and a pair that were always together. Possibly just as much of a landslide. I don't know. Steve, what do you think about Jak and Daxter? And did you ever play any of the Banjo Kazooie games?
I haven't played Banjo Kazooie. I've played the Jak and Daxter before, which wasn't too bad. Banjo Kazooie is almost like freaking Donkey Kong.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's almost like playing Donkey Kong, and
very similar.
Jak and Daxter is more like Ratchet and Clank than any of the, anything else. So
yeah, Banjo and Kazooie, you got like jumping, climbing, swimming, rolling into enemies. Like you said, a lot of the same stuff you would see in Donkey Kong. They do have some things where they could use feathers to fly, or certain movements. They did have to have the intelligence to solve certain puzzles, I guess, along the way. They could transform, though. At one point, there was magic powers that allowed them to turn into things like crocodiles, bees, termites, etc., and that would give you more variety of some abilities. So maybe that could come into play. But Jak and Daxter got a lot going for him. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Plus, Jak and Daxter actually had crossovers with Ratchet and Clank.
Yep.
In their games.
Yeah, and they are pretty impressive looking fighters too. I always thought I like the Jak and Daxter look. I think they look cool. Not that has anything to do with anything. Mike, what do you think about this one?
I honestly think this. If we were going to turn this into a comedy session, ToeJam and Earl versus Banjo and Kazooie would have been.
That would have made more sense.
It would have been funnier, but I think this is going to be interesting because to see who wins these rounds, to see if Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter get to face each other, because as Steve said, they did cross over in each other's games. Jak and Daxter, I've played a couple of the games. I like them. I think they're cool. They're cool characters. The games are interesting. All the weapons. Jak and Daxter to me is like a. When did you say they started?
Jak and Daxter have
PS2?
been around since 2001.
So it's PS2 basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are the PS2 era combination of Crash and Spyro, but they're more competent. It's just funny characters. And
they're dark and sarcasm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And they would wipe the floor with Banjo and Kazooie.
I mean, I would think they'd be pretty formidable people in this whole tournament. I mean, they have
most definitely.
Pretty big arsenal. I think even if we would have put Banjo Kazooie against ToeJam and Earl, I still think ToeJam and Earl stands no chance.
No.
Well, because you'd have a bird eating them.
Yeah. Did Jak and Daxter wipe the floor with Banjo Kazooie, Neil?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of either game series, but I'm looking at Daxter and I just see this elf guy with this big, what looks like a rifle over his shoulder. I'm like, yeah. What's Banjo gonna do? He's like, oh, Banjo, and he's gonna go look for note blocks, and he doesn't stand a chance.
I'd like to see the bird and I don't know what you consider Daxter to be, whatever little animal type.
He's almost like a weasel.
Yeah, it would be interesting if the two kind of sidekicks went after each other, I guess. But yeah, Jak is going to annihilate Banjo, which brings us to our next matchup, which is Battle 13, and this is where we're getting to something that I was talking about earlier. I think it would have been interesting to see ToeJam and Earl against one of these two characters, Battle 13 sees us with Earthworm Jim versus Bubsy. I think Earthworm Jim and ToeJam and Earl have a lot in common. Go ahead, Neil.
One of them has a gun, period.
Yeah.
And come on, and the other one's Bubsy. What could
Bubsy
possibly go wrong? You lose.
I think you could fall in a cliff.
We definitely have a lot of interesting characters on this side of the bracket so far. Earthworm Jim, back in '94 is when we first saw him. Obviously, he has a suit that he wears, and he has that gives him the arms and the legs, because otherwise he is a worm. So that wouldn't be very intimidating, I guess. But with that suit on and the ability to have that gun that has a pretty potent kick there to it, you definitely have stuff going against you. But can Bubsy, as a sly cat, somehow get Earthworm out of the suit?
Well, he is Rob Paulson.
So, I mean, that would probably be his only chance, is if he could somehow get him out of the suit so that he's forced to just, slither around like a worm. I guess slither is more of a word for snake, but I don't know what you would call the worm.
Slither.
He would just inch along.
There you go, inch along.
That was a good pun for once.
But I don't know how Bubsy would actually try to go about getting Earthworm Jim out of the suit, because I think that's got to be his only shot. What do you think, Mike?
No, Neil already said it. Earthworm Jim has a gun. Bubsy just get his head blown off.
Bubsy does have 9 lives.
9 bullets.
And he can throw some massive hairballs at him. Or whatever Bubsy did. I don't really remember the Bubsy games super clearly. Bubsy's been around since '93. I didn't play a lot of his games. I mean, I know what the character is, etc. I mean, he did have the ability to buy items. So he also had some suits and some different things. You could get a Nerf gun, smart bombs that would clear the screen, slingshots. So, I mean, he does have some ways to at least put up a tiny bit of a fight, I think. I don't know. Steve?
Well, Earthworm Jim had his own animated series, and Bubsy's got canned after the pilot.
Very true. We're going on that.
Yeah. I mean, Bubsy did have some good voice actors, but again, no, I think Earthworm Jim is going to take it just because he's more of a badass. He's got the suit, he's got the gun. If nothing else, he would throw Bubsy off a cliff. I mean, I don't really think that there's much to go on here besides he's going to take it.
All right. Any other thoughts on Earthworm Jim and Bubsy? Mike? Nothing? All right. Before I announce it, we'll get to Mike in a second. I think he has something to say. But we're getting down here because we only have 3 more battles to announce. That means we only have 6 more competitors that we've yet to reveal in this tournament. So this is the point where I'm assuming people that are listening are thinking of their favorite characters and wondering, are we really going to leave them off of the tournament? Are they going to show up? Are they not going to show up? Because we only have 6 more people that will appear. You probably somewhat noticed the theme so far on this side of the bracket, whereas we had the Nintendo on the left side. So far we've had a collection of PlayStation and some Genesis and some stuff like that over here. But let's see. We got 6 more characters, so going into Battle 14.
15 minutes could save you on 15% or more from Geico's car insurance.
Oh my. Battle 14, we'll see Gex fighting Sonic the Hedgehog. Mike, go ahead and start this one.
It's the Geico Gecko. Oh my god.
Not quite.
What is this? I don't even know who this character is. I've never seen this thing before.
You've never seen that?
Gex?
No. Nope.
Yeah, he had a lot of almost James Bondish type looks in gaming covers.
He is a gecko, so you had that part.
Obviously.
Mike.
I can see that. Thank you.
His dad worked for NASA, so that was good. You know, he's got some smarts.
Does he actually have his own damn game, or is he just a mascot for companies?
No, he had his own game.
Okay.
He was around back in '94. He debuted on the 3DO.
That's why I don't know him, because I didn't have a 3DO.
Well, he was also on PlayStation.
Yeah, then immediately the next year he was on PlayStation, and then Sega Saturn and some computer platforms as well there. I mean, he is a fighter. He's gone through different worlds. He's not necessarily like some of the other characters we've talked about, where they just kind of roam around a map and do things, maybe fly something or whatever. I mean, he does have the ability to do some things to put up a fight. But he is going against probably one of the most iconic video game characters of all time in Sonic the Hedgehog. So I don't know how much of his, if people are voting based on popularity, Sonic's going to immediately take this. Neil, are you familiar with Gex at all?
A little bit.
Do you think he has any type of offense that he can put against the supersonic speed of Sonic the Hedgehog?
Not really. I mean, Sonic's basically immortal as long as he has rings. Even if you hurt him, he just gets another set of rings and he'll be okay. Whereas I don't know, Gex is kind of he's more of a platforming character. I'm looking at the game right here; it doesn't seem to be much of an offensive character.
No.
Plus, Sonic's got blast processing. I'm sorry, that's not a thing. But I don't. I mean, unless he has the ability to turn himself into a wall of spikes that just happens to be in Sonic's way, I don't see him doing much.
That's a great point. Yeah, Sonic is pretty indestructible. You got to hit him a couple times, get all his rings, and then hit him again. And Gex is more about the charisma and the wisecracking and the kind of the image, so to speak. Not to say he doesn't have some offense and some sneakiness and some good blood in him as far as strength and intelligence and whatnot. But I'm going to do something that Mike usually does. I'm going to project since it would be a finals matchup, I don't think it's going to influence much, but it would sure be interesting to see Sonic somehow matched up against Mega Man in the finals. For some reason, I think that would be an interesting matchup. Steve, what do you think? Is this one Sonic all the way?
Yeah. For one, Gex has not that much longevity in his gaming, and it's pretty much all side scroller, and looks pretty lame by comparison to Sonic. Sonic comes out with a new game. He's like the damn Mario of Sega. Yeah. He's everywhere. I mean, it's sick the amount of times he comes up, but there's a reason.
Oh, I
He's
agree.
More fun to play.
And I know there was probably a lot of people at that point that were wondering why Sonic hadn't been mentioned yet and getting worried that we weren't going to put him in here. So there you go. There's Sonic. If you're thinking about your favorite, PlayStation, Xbox, Sega Genesis characters and waiting to see if they'll show up or not.
Master Chief.
No.
No Master Chief. But you might be disappointed because we're going to go even a bigger twist, I think, now. I mean, we've had our two-person teams. Now we're going to go somewhere where you might have thought we weren't possibly going to go in this tournament. As we get to battle number 15, we have one more kind of world or genre that we haven't really talked about yet. And, that's the world of classic gaming. And Battle 15, we will see, probably doesn't get any more classic than this. Pac-Man versus Frogger. Pac-Man versus Frogger. Mike, what are your thoughts? Now, before you say anything, Frogger's been dodging cars, crocodiles, and all kinds of stuff for years.
But Pac-Man just eats everything in sight.
Well, they both showed up
Pac-Man's
about the same time.
What was that, Steve?
I said they both showed up about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Pac-Man 1980 and Frogger in 81.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Frogger has much of an offense there. He's more of a character that's going to avoid things and not get hit by things. I don't, him getting to the goal isn't much for offense, I guess not. But if he could trick Pac-Man into following him to try to, if he could convince Pac-Man to try to come eat him, maybe he could jump around enough to trick Pac-Man into jumping into a crocodile's mouth. Was it crocodiles or alligators in that game? I don't even know.
It was alligators.
Okay, maybe he could trick him into jumping in the alligator at the wrong point where he's mastered where to jump and when to jump, but I think that's his only chance, Neil. Does Frogger have anything else besides trying to trick Pac-Man into jumping in the wrong thing?
I don't know. Pac-Man's not that stupid. I don't think. I mean, Pac-Man had his own cartoon. He seemed pretty intelligent. Yeah. Frogger also had a cartoon, but he's got no offense. He's a frog. You can just... he's always like 10 seconds away from being a grease spot on the road. So,
we definitely have a variety of different animals on this side of the bracket.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like saying, okay, you got a football player and a baseball player who's going to fight. Who's going to win? Well, it's going to be the football player. Yeah. And, Pac-Man is afraid of ghosts, but he at least has some offense against the ghosts. Right. So he can attack. So
especially if he gets his little power pellet or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So, Mike?
I think if we have like a losers bracket somewhere. No, seriously. I think if we have a losers bracket somewhere and Frogger ends up in the losers bracket along with Peach and whoever else, Peach will just kiss him and they'll go live happily ever after.
There's your frog.
Beat him with. She would just beat him with her parasol, and that'd be the end of Frogger.
Oh my! And I know some people might be looking at some of these matchups that we've been going over today and last episode and thinking these aren't even close. Like, what are you guys doing? But just keep in mind that these will all lead to future matchups, and we'll get more intriguing as we go on through. The first round of any tournament usually has some blowouts in it. Steve, any thoughts on Pac-Man and Frogger?
Well, Pac-Man would just eat him.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. What if we had Pac-Man and Kirby going against each other?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Who can eat
Frog
who
legs.
first? Ew, frog legs. Not that they're discussing it.
Tiny
Well, Kirby would
tadpoles,
just
tiny
eat them,
crushes.
and then he'd get an even bigger mouth.
Oh God.
All right. And our final battle of the first round is the last two competitors to join our tournament here. So we've had 30 characters so far. We got these final two, Battle 16. Sticking with the classics, we got Cubert versus Dig Dug. Now, at least Dig Dug has the whatever you call it, shovel, pickaxe, digging apparatus. Cubert's obviously Cubert. I don't know, Mike. Where do you go with this one?
At first, I thought that was
Dig Dug and Frogger would be epic.
yeah, that would be an epic losers tournament. When I first saw the image before I zoomed in on it, I thought it was a Turbo from Wreck-It Ralph. I really did.
Oh my god.
Just because of the graphics. Shut up. It's got to be Cubert. I don't know if Dig Dug has offense enough to fight Cubert.
He's got a digger.
What?
He's got a
A
shovel.
Dig Dugger.
He
He's got a
does.
shovel.
He's got a shovel, but Cubert can just jump on his head.
No.
Cubert, if you jump on the wrong panel, you fall off into the abyss.
Dig Dug would just dig a hole around him.
I know what's going to happen here. You know what happens when Cubert jumps on an enemy's head? Cubert dies. Plus, well, the one thing that has been mentioned here is that Dig Dug has the air pump. And what does Cubert has is a big schnoz. So all you have to do is plug that air hose into the schnoz and pump him up, and he would just explode. And that'd be the end of Cubert.
I mean, easily, Cubert is the more known, probably more popular character. I'm assuming a lot of kids these days, sound like the old grandpa on the lawn, don't know who Dig Dug is, maybe. But if there was ever the right matchup for a complete upset, I think Dig Dug has a chance. I know people love Cubert, but Dig Dug has more of an offense, I think. Cubert, even though... Go ahead.
Dig Dug, look at his gaming resume. I mean, his game has been ported again on multiple different platforms, and Cubert's kind of fallen off the abyss. I mean, I haven't even seen the arcade game re-released on a modern console. Not that I'm aware of.
And Cubert's almost more like Frogger, where his strength is just being able to jump on the right thing to avoid things.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he'll jump on one of his little rainbow disc and move to a different part of the level, but that's not beating Dig Dug.
Yeah, that might work with Coily, but that's not going to work with Dig Dug.
It might work with Frogger, but he's going against somebody that actually has a weapon. Steve?
I'm going Dig Dug.
Dig Dug for the upset?
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of upsets on this side of the board.
I mean, I love Cubert. Don't get me wrong. I love playing Cubert. I love Cubert from back in the day. Like, that was fun stuff. But I don't see how he beats Dig Dug. Mike, you seem to be voting for Cubert, but how does he beat Dig Dug?
I don't know. I guess he can't, sadly.
I mean, I guess he can get him to jump off the wrong thing, but that's the same thing that Frogger was hoping for, and we voted against Frogger.
Yeah, true.
You guys got to get the chubby checker singing the Dig Dug theme.
Oh, God.
Yes. All right.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
That is a thing.
You'll have to send it to Steve, Neil.
Okay.
Before we go over who you think are the most intriguing matchups and who is going to be the biggest blowout and who are some of the people that you like on this side of the bracket to kind of make it far, just a quick review of what we had on this side of the bracket. We started with Battle 9, which was Sly Cooper versus Crash Bandicoot. Battle 10 sees Spyro the Dragon versus Rayman. Battle 11, in the pairing combinations here, we had Ratchet and Clank versus ToeJam and Earl. Battle 12, Jak and Daxter versus Banjo Kazooie. Battle 13, Earthworm Jim versus Bubsy. Battle 14, Gex versus Sonic. Battle 15, Pac-Man versus Frogger. And Battle 16, Cubert versus Dig Dug. Mike, what is the biggest blowout of this round?
We're going to have two big blowouts. Battles 11 and 12. No
Ratchet and
contest. Yeah.
Jak and Daxter.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter. I think depending on who likes... I think the popularity thing is going to come into effect with Battle 10, depending on who likes Rayman and who likes Spyro. I wish Crash would pull out, an upset. Not that much of an upset, but a close race with Sly Cooper. Sadly, I don't think it's going to happen.
I think there will also. I mean, I think there's a potential blowout there with Sonic against Gex.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
and Pac-Man versus Frogger.
Right, but I mean, some people might look at Sonic versus Gex, and they might, go either way. But I'm saying, overall, I would assume 20 or 30 to 1 or 2 for Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank versus ToeJam and Earl and Banjo and Kazooie.
Ratchet and Clank should be the bigger blowout just because of ToeJam and Earl.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying those two battles should be double digits to single digits. It really should.
Steve, are there any one matchup or two matchups in here that you could see being pretty darn close, 50-50, or an intriguing matchup that you're not quite sure how the people will vote?
I'm going to go with... I mean, there's quite a few that I think could be kind of neck and neck. Sly and Crash, I think, could go either way. Spyro and Rayman, I think, could go either way. Those, I think those are pretty much the closest ones in this round. A lot of them are either highly more action-packed characters going against
some slums.
Yeah, to put it nicely.
I think it'll be somewhat telling to see how people vote in that Q-Bird Dig Dug matchup. Mm-hmm. To me, that's an intriguing one that should be close, not because it's a close matchup where, I think you're right. I think Sly Cooper and Crash Bandicoot and then the battle with Spyro and versus Rayman are the actual closest battles. But Battle 16 could be close because of the fact that one is way more popular and the other should really probably win. So it might make for an even voting between that, not because it should be a close matchup, but because for two different reasons, depending on how people vote. Neil, what's the most interesting matchup you saw here?
Neil? He might be having...
Sorry, I muted myself.
Okay. That's all right. What's the most interesting matchup you see here?
I want to see Q-Bird versus Dig Dug, because I really think that Dig Dug has the upset here. I think a lot more people are aware of Dig Dug today than Q-Bird. Q-Bird is really he's only come back because of Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah. And still he doesn't really have a new game. I think there was one or two, I'm going to use finger quotes, sequels to Q-Bird, but they really weren't really known. Mm. And Dig Dug he's really held his, he's not like Mario or Sonic, but he's really held his own throughout the decades as being a C-list video game character. So right. I think he's got it.
I'm definitely intrigued to see how that one plays out. Mike, we saw a couple different things here. Number one, with the classic characters like Pac-Man and Dig Dug and Q-Bird. We also saw the pairings like Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter. Anyone standing out on this side of the bracket as an early favorite? Do Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter have an edge because of the duo aspect to it? Do you see someone like Sonic being able to blow through this just based on his speed and abilities, or someone like Pac-Man that can just eat everybody up? Who's your early favorite on this side of the bracket?
It's got to be Spyro and Sonic. I think that the Dragon Fire is going to be helping Spyro big time in his favor. And Sonic, he's a speedster. And once you have Urkel voicing you, there's no going back.
Oh, God.
Come on! Did I do that? Come on.
You did.
I'm now voting against him.
Stop it.
Just kidding.
Stop it. No, but seriously, Sonic, Steve said, it would be interesting. I think Steve said it would be interesting to see if it ended up being Sonic and Mega Man.
Nope, that was Neil.
That was me, but that's okay.
Either way, whatever.
Steve, is it fair to have these pairings of Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, etc., in the tournament?
I think so. I think.
You think someone can beat a pair like that?
I think so. I think if done right, I think that they could.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't too afraid of including them. Again, they are iconic. If you think of Nintendo, obviously you have your Marios and your Zeldas and your Donkey Kongs, etc. But for some of these other systems, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, those types of characters are some of the most iconic. So I don't think we can not include them in this. So that's why they're here. Mike, any other thoughts on this side of the bracket? Or just kind of how you're seeing this now that you can see all 32 combatants?
I almost wish we mixed it up a little bit more and didn't have the left side of the bracket be so Nintendo-based versus each other. Because I think it would have been made...
Here's what you got, though, by doing that. If you're a Nintendo fanboy,
you get an entire side of the board.
And you're forced to vote your own characters against each other, instead of, if they were all mixed, just voting straight Nintendo all the way through the whole tournament. So that's one reason. Plus, I just think it's cool to see the Nintendo characters face off against each other and the Sega, slash Xbox face against each other. Not that there's a lot of Xbox characters, but PlayStation, etc.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with you on that. Steve, now that you can see all 32 participants, any thoughts overall?
I have my lucky suspicions that I think I know who's going to win. I'm to that fact, I'm actually building my own fake version of the tournament lineup, and I'm going to leave it that way with little black boxes over it, just in anticipation that I'm right.
He's going to make all the arts prior and see how many he can actually get right. We should have done a pool. We should have had people predict from here on out, and then see who's actually right.
Well,
you definitely.
I am pretty good at judging the future. I did that during the last Wars
That's
tournament.
True. You definitely have a lot more humanoid characters on the left side of the bracket with the Nintendo, and a lot more animal characters with the other half. Not that makes any difference whatsoever. But Neil, now that you can see all 32 people, any favorites early on from either side?
God, I keep wanting to say Samus, but she's not in this.
Okay, we need to
Mega Man.
Yeah.
But
We need to address that. Why was Samus not... Because I know people are going to be pissed once they hear this episode. Like, oh my god, how could you forget Samus?
I just think that's a different level of character.
That would be along the same levels of including Master Chief and
that's true.
And the Doom guy and Duke Nukem and
yeah, I think it just makes it too much of a easy win for that character. If there was anybody that I could just look at and say this person's going to like steamroll through the whole thing and then nobody has a shot of beating them, I was more apt not to include them. Now I know some people have said that about Kirby. Some people think just by having Mario in here, he's going to just go through just based on popularity. But I think all the characters that are here have weaknesses and have somebody somewhere in the tournament that if they're matched up against them could be beaten. I could be wrong, but I feel like everybody has somebody that could beat them. Just maybe they don't have to face them. Maybe they somehow find a path that doesn't end up going against them, but that would take somebody else from somewhere in the tournament taking that person out for them, kind of, otherwise they would match up in the finals. So,
True.
But that's the reason why I didn't include Samus, and there's other characters as well. I know a lot of people, would probably like a more mature version of a tournament that we could do later on with characters from, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and, Master Chief and that type of stuff, and that would be a fun tournament to do in the future. But I think including any of those types of characters with the likes of Spyro and Sly Cooper and Donkey Kong is not quite fair.
Yeah, no. Oh my god, can you imagine if we did another 32 where the first 16 are Street Fighter, the second 16 are Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
We'd almost have to expand to our bigger tournament, our 64-man tournament. It'd be a long process, but it would be fun. So how are people going to vote and do all that type of stuff, Mike? Or
Basically,
how do they stay in tune with what's going on with this tournament? Go
to geekcastradio.com, look for the GCRN Wars episode 16 post, listen to the podcast, and then vote. Comment as well on the post. Now
everybody's going to be giving their predictions and projections now that they can see everybody. They're going to be everyone's going to be trying to play the crystal ball game, which will be fun to see what people think.
Yep, exactly. So just head on over to geekcastradio.com, click on the episode 16 post, and Bob's your uncle. There you go. Shut up.
And then tune in for episode 17 when we will go over all of round 2. This was the only round that we'll split half and half since there were so many battles going on. From here on out, we'll do each round fully within an episode. So next episode will be all of round 2.
And we'll give the results of round 1.
Yes. How could I forget that? And tune in for episode 17 to see who wins every matchup of this first round.
Thank you for listening to GCRN Wars. You can get a hold of us in the following ways. You can contact us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can comment on this episode post with the poll. Please be sure to fill out the voting, and if you'd like to leave an explanation, leave it in the comments below. You can get a hold of us on Twitter at Geekcast Radio, hashtag GCRN Wars. That's GCRNWARZ. So until next time, tune in and check out GCRN Wars Tournament on episode 16, where we cover the other half of Round 1's fight. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.
As your score gets higher, they multiply.
Now come on, everybody, take a chance.
We're going underground to the Dig Dug dance.
Use your pump just like a bazooka. Use it to blow up. Pump a fighter and put out its flames. Eat all the veggies and win the game. Release all the rocks, watch them fall.
Dig Dug's the greatest miner of them all.
Dig Dug,
Dig Dug,
Dig Dug,
Dig Dug.
Dig Dug,
I can dig
Dig Dug,
it. Dig Dug,
Dig Dug,
Dig Dug,
Dig Dug.
Dig Dug.
Dig 'em, dig 'em, Doug, dig 'em.